Welcome back to the Mio on MMA podcast. We're on UFC Apex, whatever at this point. I honestly don't know. The title will have the appropriate number, but I honestly don't know. It's 90 something. Matthias Nicolau versus Alex Perez. Not a very good card, but hey, it's the Apex. What do you expect? Although in this case, there's not really even a main event. Don't get me wrong. I actually relatively enjoy Matthias Nicolau's fights. I used to enjoy Alex Perez's fights without any real difficulty because at one point he was a fun wrestle boxer with like a very nice low kick game. But now, I don't know, like he looked okay in the fight against Mohamed Mokaev, but like against a guy who was going to do one thing and one thing only repetitively, he actually really didn't have like great answers. Like, perhaps that's just my, like, general disbelief of Mohamed Mokaev, but, like, the guy has fought 3 times this decade. Twice this decade, actually. And we're 4 years in it. We're in the 4th year of the decade. And he's lost both of them. I don't know. As a main event guy, it's just not really there. And also, honestly, looking back at his win-losses, like, we kind of think of him pretty highly because he got a title shot against Davey Fix, UFC 255 main event. But realistically speaking, outside of beating Hussier Formiga with low kicks, he hasn't really done anything all that impressive. Like, yeah, beating Jordan Espinosa is something. Beating Mark De La Rosa is something. Beating Shorty Torres is something. Beating Eric Shelton is something. But, like, lost to Joe B, lost a bit to Figueiredo, lost to Mokaev, lost to Pantoja. Like, really outside of that Formiga fight, nothing really stands out as like a high-end, top-end win. So actually, it's kind of weird that he's still ranked, to be honest. But I guess that is the state of men's flyweight. It's just really kind of old achievements still holding up in the rankings quite heavily. I wonder if there's anyone else that's kind of like that in their rankings. Hang on, let's see here. UFC rankings, please. Is there anyone else that's like really just unfathomable based on current form for being ranked in there? Let's see here. Pantoja, Roval, Moreno, Albazi, Kaikar France, Nicolau, Kopp, Mokaev, Perez, Elliott, Urseg, Schnell, Ulanbekov, Tyra, Dvorak. You could argue Dvorak, I guess, because he's been kind of unimpressive lately. And wow, Subu Darji is still a ranked flyweight. This is not great. I know he had that phenomenal fight with Matt Schnell, which was amazing, but like he also lost that fight. He lost to Tim Elliott, and he beat Adashev, beat Malcolm Gordon, which doesn't mean a ton. And then he beat. Oh no, he lost to Louis Spoka. Yeah, so I have no idea why he's ranked. All right. Anyways, men's flyweight, a little bit of weird spot because let's be honest, the UFC has tried to kill it multiple times. So it's good to see it getting a main event. I guess that is the positive. That is the positive spin I have for this, is we are getting a flyweight main event, which indicates the UFC is not currently trying to kill a division they have tried to kill like 3 times. As you may have guessed from my preamble, I am taking Matthias Nicolau. It's really just all about Perez. Like, if I could trust Perez to fight back against adversity, pushback, competitive moments, I would probably pick him here because Nicolau is like this dedicated counterpuncher who realistically gives you a lot of room to work. Like, if you really think about it, like look at any of his fights and realize that there are extended moments of it that he is in theory losing. Not because he's being outfought or he's been outskilled or whatever. It's just that there are points where like being a dedicated counterpuncher means that you are just giving up volume edges, aggression edges, the ability to set the pace of the fight, to fundamentally stamp yourself on the fight are surrendered to you. So, you know, you could see Perez winning that, but like realistically, Perez is a guy who's been submitted a number of times. He does not fight submissions very well. He does not handle not being able to bully the opposing fighter very well. He doesn't handle rough physical parity very well. It's like one of those things where like he will dominate the lower end of the division. Absolutely. You give him somebody he could just bully, he will destroy them. And his athletic ability will take him very, very high. It got him to a title shot after all. but against anybody like good and in their prime, which Jussier Formiga was not by the time he lost to him, I'm going to take the other guy. I'm going to take Nicolau being able to counter his low kicks effectively, out grapple him if it comes to that. I am going to say submission just because Perez is very, very durable. I could see him getting hurt, club and sub basically, get hurt and then get rear naked choked or guillotined or darsed or whatever, because Nicolau is actually a pretty good grappler. Not an aggressive one, but a pretty good one. And I don't really see how Perez can finish him. And I don't see how he can stay together and not fall apart over the course of a 5-round fight. So yeah, I've got Nicolau by sub. He is a minus 180 to minus 200 favorite. Perez is plus 150 to plus 160. Frankly, I could only see myself betting on Nicolau there. I think I put a little bit of money on Nicolau here, but Perez would have to be a substantially larger underdog for me to even think about it. By the way, the usual betting stance here: do not bet what you cannot lose, because this is MMA. Random stuff happens. Some of the greatest upsets in sports gambling history are in MMA. So, just keep that in mind. Don't bet your house. Don't bet your full paycheck. Bet what you can afford. What I personally do, is at the beginning of the year, I put a little bit of money aside. And then at the beginning of each month, I add to that. And if that's gone, that's gone. That's all there is to it. Anyways, Ryan Spawn versus Bogdan Gushkov. I don't really I can totally see Gushkov winning this fight because Ryan Spawn is Ryan Spawn. He doesn't take this nearly as seriously as he should. He's admitted to not training full time and not training hard, and basically just allowing the fact that he is a, by MMA standards, really good athlete, carry him through. And that means that he could always lose. He could always just come out and be lazy, and Gushkov hits really, really hard, and he could get clipped. But I can't pick it happening because Spawn is the taller, longer fighter. He is, I don't want to say the better striker, because on a technical level, both of these guys are not very good. But his athletic ability, his hand speed, his power, his explosiveness, his dynamicism, his reach, his length, these are all things that go into making him a more effective striker than Gushkov. He is the better grappler of the two, I think. If Volkan Oezdemir can out-grapple you, then certainly Ryan Spawn's dynamic front headlock attack game can probably come into play, and that's how I'm thinking this ends, with a submission. But I don't know. I never trust Ryan Spawn. He did lose to Anthony Smith, and he's now fighting the Eastern European version of Anthony Smith. I'm not kidding. Seriously, look at a picture of Gushkov side by side with Anthony Smith, and it is alarmingly similar. It's very alarmingly similar. So, not picking Gushkov, totally could see him winning because it's Spawn, but Spawn is the better fighter. He's the better athlete. He is, if there is a better technician, it's him. He has the larger frame. He has everything going for him, and he should win the fight if he just takes it seriously. He is a minus 190 to minus 220 favorite. Gushkov at plus 158 to plus 180. I'm staying away from this fight from a betting standpoint. Ariane Lipski versus Karine Silva. I'm actually really interested in this one. I have noticed that Silva is not a big favorite, minus 148 to minus 160, and that is surprising to me that you can get Lipski at plus 125 to plus 135, because realistically speaking, let's talk about Karine Silva here for a hot second. She's had a very good UFC run. She has gone, what are we rocking at now? 3-1, 3-0, 4-0 if you count the Contender Series, but it's against Poliana Botella, Ketlin Souza, who we'll talk about later, Marina Moroz, who I do like, but who has had a really, 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 really rough go of it lately. Marina Moroz is just rough times. Losing to JoJo Wood, losing to Jennifer Maia, winning the fight back in 2022 against Maria Agapova really seemed like a thing, but she hasn't won since. So that's the standout win. Silva is a dynamic grappler. She's got very good submission game, guillotine choke, D-bar, Darce choke, guillotine choke. That's her UFC results. She's also got an arm bar, heel hook, etc. She's got the full gambit there, but she also has herself some submission losses because, she goes hard. And it's what allowed her to get armbarred by Marina Moroz back in 2014. It's what allowed her to get knee barred by Marina Mokhtarian. Like, she's just kind of a mess. She's really athletic for the weight class and everything, but she is a mess, both as a striker and as a grappler. And opportunities will present themselves. And the thing is that if you look at her opponents she's beaten, it's all people she has very, very pronounced physical edges against. Ketlin Souza is a 115 fighter. Marina Moroz is not a very good athlete. Queen Yan, I think is how it's said, her Contender Series opponent, again, not a very good athlete. Same with basically everyone she fought on the regional scene that she beat. It's kind of like just, the question is, can she blow you out of the water? Or are you similarly as formless as she is if you're Poliana Botelho, who has the athleticism to, compete at this level, but just none of the game. Absolutely none of the game. It's why she lost to Jillian Robertson, Luna Carolina, Cynthia Calvillo. It's why her only win, I think, is Lauren Mueller in the... Oh, no, she beat Siri Kondo and Pearl Gonzalez. Yeah, Pearl Gonzalez, not UFC caliber. And Lauren Mueller's run in the UFC was terrible. Anyways, what I'm getting at here is I'm going with Ariane Lipski because I think as a striker, she has a much more formed game. She's very, very dangerous. She's dynamic in her own way. She has the physical tools to compete with Silva. Silva might be a better athlete. I do think she's probably a stronger athlete than Lipski. But Lipski is like a physical force in her own right. And that's not really something outside of Botelho that we have seen Silva beat. There's a general complete lack of physical parity in all of her fights that she wins. And Lipski's a good grappler. She's training with Amanda Nunes, last I checked. I hope she still is. And during the time of her training with Nunes, she has looked better and better. Like, she's looked calmer, putting it together. It's a bit weird because she's 30 years old. She technically should be kind of a finished product. But, like, she's still coming around. Like, that win over Casey O'Neill, very impressive. The split decision with Melissa Gatto, very impressive. Melissa Gatto is a physical force. She's a Haas. And then, like, JJ Aldridge's a good win. Yeah, she did lose to Priscilla Cachoeira. And if we go back in time, we have ground and pound losses to Montana De La Rosa and Antina Shevchenko, who are not great athletes. They're certainly lesser athletes than Karina Silva. But I think that that's just a different version of her that existed. She has wins over Lana Carolina, who's a very similar fighter to Karina Silva, although a lot less fluid, a lot less comfortable. But I don't know. It just feels like if you're going to give Lipski big opportunities, and Silva almost assuredly will, Lipski will make you pay for them. And if not finishing you, because I am going with a decision, probably most likely because Lipski tends to finish by sub. And I think that there will be an aversion to grappling with Karine Silva, or at least they really, really should. The game plan should be to exploit the fact that dynamic, reasonably fast, reasonably powerful, and explosive, there is very little technical basis to Silva's striking game. And that should be something Lipski can, abuse to get the victory. I've got Lipski by decision, and she is, I think I have a couple of underdog picks on this card, but she is one of the, my big underdog pick is coming up, David Onama. There you go. That'll be the ticket. Is it Jonta or Jean? Whatever. Deniz, the kickboxer, the heavyweight kickboxer against Austin Lane. I don't know why I have a hard time with the JH Portuguese names, but I do. I'm taking Deniz. Austin Lane is a glass cannon. Deniz is not the striker that people are trying to make him out to be because they're like talking about world champion multiple times. It's like, dude is an ACB kickboxing champion, which it's cool. Don't get me wrong. But it's not really a world title. Like, that's stretching it. He did fight in glory. He had some reasonable success. He is a good striker. Like, by heavyweight standards, he's an excellent striker. But I think there is this tendency to think that everybody who comes out of, like, glory is Alex Pereira, and they're not. For good and for bad. It's not even that I'm saying Alex Pereira is, like, the best kickboxer in the world, because he's not. He was outmatched a couple of times in his kickboxing career. But there is a uniqueness to that just isn't really replicable. And anyways, Deniz is probably going to be better than any striker the UFC puts him up against. He'll probably knock out Austin Lane, who is a former NFL player, 6'6", 80-inch reach. He's got the frame. He's got the athletic ability. He has no real technique, though, and he has no real defense, and he has no real durability. So Didiz, knockout. There you go. He is a minus 250 to minus 275. Lane is plus 200 to plus 220. That seems about right because, I mean, in theory, Lane does have a ground game. If he pursues takedowns with a regular vengeance, he might be able to achieve something. But I don't know. He just seems to like to stand and bang a lot. And it's just, it's not conducive to him remaining conscious. Jonathan Pierce versus David Onama. This is one I was surprised. Pierce is a minus 170 to minus 180 favorite. And Onama is the plus 136 to plus 145 underdog. So I put money on Onama. What I really think about this fight is that Jonathan Pierce is, generally speaking, a guy who beats people he can just wear on and be bigger than. And while he is bigger than Onama, he is not that much bigger. He's an inch taller. He has less reach. He probably, I don't know, if I were to guess, maybe there's a 5 to 10 pound weight advantage in terms of like where he's coming from. But Onama is big enough to resist him and very athletic. You know, people have like forgotten about this because obviously it was a great moment for Nate Landwehr when he put that comeback against Onama. That was a phenomenal moment and everything, but it kind of like ignores that Onama was also beating that man's butt. And while Onama is a little bit inconsistent, probably because I don't think he has a comfortable coaching environment. I think he was a Krause fighter who I think is still essentially in the Krause stable, even though he's not supposed to be, which is a problem. But yeah, he is the better athlete. He is a good enough grappler not to die. He is the better striker of the two because JSP is not a very good striker. Also hate that nickname. It does stand out. Yeah, I've got Onama by decision, just being the better athlete, the more dynamic fighter, the more complete fighter, the more technical fighter, and being able to just not let Pierce do what usually Pierce does to win, which is just bully people. Tim Means versus Uros Medic. This is a fight that I would have picked Tim Means prime for prime without a second thought. But at this point, his durability is going. He's not getting knocked out, but he is getting hurt frequently. Medic does hit pretty hard. Medic is comparable in size. I mean, there is a 4-inch reach gap and a 1-inch height gap, but Means has also like lost the ability to kind of spring around and play the range game really effectively. He wasn't ever amazing at that, but it was always like something he could do. Now it's something that like he pretty much has to pocket box with opponents, and it's just something I'm not going to pick him to win. If he wins, awesome, dope, score one for the old guys, but he is 40 years old. This is welterweight, which is not really a weight class where 40 tends to survive and win. So I am going with Medic by decision to hurt Means a number of times, but not get the finish because Means still has that recuperability. And I also don't think Medic is... I don't want to say Medic isn't smart, but there is a certain lack of fight IQ feel to him. So I could see him hurting Means, going hog wild, Means surviving, and then Medic has to spend like the rest of the round recuperating. Anyways, Medic is a minus 275 to minus 335 favorite. Means is a plus 220 to plus 250 underdog. Do not bet on Medic at those odds. It is not a good idea. It's too wide. It's too wide. I don't know if I'm going to put anything on Means. I haven't yet, but yeah. Ronnie Yaya versus Victor Henry. This could be really, really fun if Ronnie Yaya can actually get some grappling into the whole thing. But like, I do kind of think at 39 years old, and with Henry's generally very good jab, very high work rate, very good combinations, and smart positioning with his footwork, we should just see Henry kind of pick him apart and pick up the W via decision, just because he doesn't have a lot of power and Yaya does still seem fairly durable. And there's also going to be moments like if Henry does knock him down or does hurt him, is he really hurt or is he trying to get in my guard, lure him in there? Because Yaya is a phenomenal grappler. I don't think I can sell it high enough. I do have to think that Henry is the winner. He is a prohibitive favorite at minus 420 to minus 549. I don't think you should ever have Henry that much of a favorite. He is by bantamweight standards, not that good of an athlete. That is who I'm picking. Yaya coming back at plus 310 to plus 400. Austin Hubbard versus Mikhail Figlak. This is a tough one because Figlak came into the UFC and I was like, you know what? This guy's pretty good. And then he kind of got embarrassed by Fares Ziam. Yes, Fares Ziam is a better fighter than I generally give him credit for. Part of my brain knows that, but it still hurt. But then on the other end, you have Austin Hubbard, who is this well-rounded, but like very unimpressive guy. Like you tend to lose to him if you have some massive gap in your game, like a Dakota Bush or a Kyle Prepolak, or you're like Max Roshkov, who just not going away is enough to beat. I don't know. I have to take Figlak. I don't think Figlak is going to break himself. He's a stable enough boxer, a good enough takedown artist, and the better grappler of the two. I think he'll probably be able to outpoint Hubbard to a decision, but I don't know. It's a really weird fight in that regard. And then we go to another one that's the same. By the way, Figlak is the favorite, minus 150 to minus 175. Hubbard plus 125 to plus 150. We have a kind of a similar one where like we have Dontel Mays versus Kyle Machado. Kyle Machado looked good against Mick Parkin. And it's like, Mick Parkin's a pretty good fighter. Was that just like a really awkward matchup or whatever? Because nothing Kyle Machado does looks like it should work. He is an incredibly awkward striker. Incredibly awkward takedown artist. Yes, he has a pretty reasonable top game, but that's kind of it. And Dontel Mays, while also being an incredibly awkward fighter, does at least have the fact that he's incredibly durable and tough, and he is a pretty good athlete. He just is like the product of like the worst coaching ever, I think. I'm going to go with Machado. I'm going to be optimistic that the awkward striking against Parkin was predictive of what he can do against other heavyweights, and that he can outstrike Mays, take him down, possibly, and control him if he does get him down. Or at the very least, like stick him up in the clinch and not let him do things. So, yeah, I'll go with Machado. Decision, he is the minus 115 to minus 120 favorite. Mays is plus 100 to minus 108. Ketlin Souza versus Marnik Mann. Marnik Mann is not a UFC fighter. She's lost twice on the Contender Series. I have no idea why she's here. She's fairly boring. The only good part of her game is clinch wrestling. She's 5 feet tall, not particularly athletic. She's tough. She's durable. She will keep trying, but she has one track only. It's not very good. It doesn't lead to finishes. And Ketlin Souza is also a pretty good clinch wrestler who has had success at 125, is finally coming down to strawweight, which is where she belongs, and she'll probably be the bigger of the two. So, yeah, Ketlin Souza by decision. I don't know. It could be an incredibly boring fight, though. I don't like this matchmaking. Souza's minus 335 to minus 350. Mann is plus 255 to plus 275. You can make that wider. I don't know. I'm not betting on it. Then we have James Yontrop versus Chris Padilla. This was supposed to be Yontrop versus Lando Venata. This was supposed to be him versus Gabe Green. Instead, we get Padilla, who is kind of the guy who you beat to get into the UFC, basically. See Gabe Green, Christian Aguilera, Jason Gonzalez. Did beat Justin James, who was a former UFC fighter, but Justin James is really not a good UFC fighter. I'm going with Yontop. I'm not on the hype train that he has coming off the Contender Series. I don't really understand the Contender Series hype train. But he is, a big guy. He's young. He's got good cardio. He's got a bit of pop in his hands. He's got some creativity. He's not complete without structure. He will be patient at times. He will vary up his pace and his pressure. I just think that he hasn't really beaten anyone like very good. Like his best win is the guy he beat on Contender Series. It's Malik Lewis, who is like the only person who really brought the size to him that could compete with him. he scrambles pretty well and whatever, but like it's just against a very low level of competition. It's just that Padilla is not really UFC competition. So like I'm worried about the next fight for Jan Trop, not this one. Like if he goes out there and he blows Padilla out of the water, the UFC probably puts him in there with somebody who is actually UFC caliber, which would make sense because they were trying to do Lando Venata and Gabe Green. And that could end up being quite bad for him. But I am hopeful. There's nothing that absolutely derails him. There's just nothing that snaps me onto the hype train either. So I look forward to maybe being convinced. I got him by decision. He's a minus 350 or 350 to 455 favorite. Padilla 255 plus 255 to plus 340. Vita Petrovic versus Nyan Liang. I've got Petrovic. She's not very good, but like she is big for 125, 5'8", 70.9 inches. She's built pretty thick. And she's strong. She's big. She's got horsepower. She's very much a head and arm throw girl, but like Liang is not very durable, not very strong, not very physical. There you go. Petrovic at some point just gets on top of her, pounds her out. Boom. There you go. She's a minus 480 to minus 530 favorite. Liang plus 360 to plus 375. And then this is my reach of the card because part of me really thinks that Mahashate will just run over Gabriel Benitez because Gabriel Benitez is not a very physical aspect fighter. He's a small lightweight. He likes to fight off the back foot and land some pretty counters. But I want him to win, so I'm picking him to win. Mahashate is just not very interesting. Now, he could be, like he's 24 years old. He could still develop into something. He's got all the physical tools in the world. He's fast, he's dynamic, he's strong. He's reasonably durable, but he is very, very, very blunt instrument. And Benitez is a much more depth, well-rounded fighter. And I have to pick that for like my soul as a technician. I'm also trying to think, has he lost to anyone like Mahashate? I guess you could say Omar Morales back in 2020. I don't know. Everybody else that Benitez has lost to, Jim Miller, David Onama, Billy Quarantillo, Sadiq Youssef, Enrique Barzola, Andre Fili, they are just much better than Mahashate. So there you go. But we'll see. We'll see. It could be a fun little fight. So those are my predictions. Oh, hang on. Betting odds. Benitez is a plus 155 to plus 170 underdog. I don't fault that at all. Mahashate minus 195 to minus 215. Anyways, those are the picks for this card. I hope you enjoyed. Check out my links down below for the MMA Simulator Discord, for my social medias, and for my video game stuff if you happen to be a nerd. I also apologize for any sound quality on this one. I am under the weather. I've had a stomach bug last couple days. It's not been great. I'm actually taking a day off work. That's how bad it's gotten. And I do hope that my recap will be a little bit better than this one.